Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very special edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Durling. My wife Sarah's here. And you may have guessed,
We're a little festive.
we're here to talk about some of our favorite Christmas music. And, you know, it's kind of all over the place. We really don't have a plan for this one. When it comes to Christmas music, we've got some of our pets in here too, trying to make sure they don't destroy anything, but that's all part of it. Got some presents in here too, actually. It's kind of all about the classics for the most part for me, but there are some newer ones that are pretty good, like some newer Christmas music that sort of captures that. I think the best new Christmas music captures the classic feel and it's kind of, a lot of it's nostalgia, right? Like you think of your childhood.
Oh, completely nostalgic. I think that's the things that you hold closest to your heart tend to be the things that capture that nostalgic, magical feeling.
Both of us, I mean, different, grew up, obviously, we didn't know each other back then, but I think we both were blessed with wonderful families, and so a lot of great memories of around Christmas time.
Definitely.
But I do want to start out to bring it kind of right up to the present, because you and, a lot of your family recently went to see Boney M. And
well, so it was Liz. Oh, now I'm not going to get her name right. Her first name is Liz.
She's like Matthews. The sole original.
She's the sole original member of Boney M. And I think at this point, I feel, because I've spoken with coworkers about Boney M Christmas specifically, and I think you have to be of a certain age, I suspect, because a lot of people don't know what I'm talking about.
First thing, it's a funny name. Boney M. What's a Boney M? But I can almost guarantee you've heard. They had some wild album covers.
Yeah, but this is specifically the Christmas one.
Yes.
And I'm using my phone because that's what I have. But this is, I grew up with it. The cats are going crazy. But talking about nostalgia, this was, I think it came out, is it 1981? Do you remember?
I think some of the songs were earlier than that, but I think you're right. I think the album itself came out in 81.
Okay, and a lot of them are classics, like classic interpretations of songs. But there are some that I only know that are theirs.
Most people would know Mary's Boy Child.
Mary's Boy Child.
Now, when I was a kid, I just thought they were doing Hark the Herald Angels Sing.
No.
But I realized, no, that's its own
But you didn't grow up with Boney M.
I grew up, I knew that song, I just didn't know who it was. And I think that's probably the same for a lot of people. You might be like, oh, I know that song. They also sang Rivers of Babylon, but that wasn't a Christmas song. And Rasputin and...
yes, we saw them. They performed that as well. But we saw them, so my mom and my Aunt Cheryl and my sister and my cousin Jill, who's like my sister, the five of us went to this at the Moncton Casino
NB, yeah.
Casino NB, thank you. And it was an experience and a half. I think there were a lot of laughs. It was unlike any concert I've ever been to. I don't know how to quite phrase it.
I wasn't there, so I can't picture it. Just
no, they did perform a lot of the, like they did a mix of the disco songs, so Daddy Cool and all that sort of thing, but the focus was definitely on the Christmas songs, just due to the timing of it, because it was on the 15th. And it was a lot of fun. It was different. Like Liz wanted to be like down amongst the people, so that was kind of different. And it was like people wanted to touch her, which was strange. But it was kind of like some of the songs, it had like, they put like a more of a Jamaican spin. There was a live band. The band was amazing with the percussion, and they even had the brass and everything. So that was really great. People were leaving the concert venue singing.
Oh yeah, songs. That's always a good sign.
That was nice. Like people were kind of coming out dancing, Feliz Navidad and the different things. So I think we had Rivers of Babylon specifically stuck in our head after, but it was a nice family moment, if you will.
Well, when you've grown up with it, it's hard to introduce someone to something if you didn't, like for Christmas music, if you didn't grow up playing it every single year and it didn't become perennial. So to see it live,
Yeah, so that, I mean, this music means something for me. It doesn't have the same meaning for you. Like, comparatively, Tim loves Charlie Brown Christmas. That's not something so much my I mean, we watched it, but I don't have the same level of appreciation that you do.
and here we have Gordon.
We have a Gordon.
Because he's very, very bad kitty. But he's very, very handsome. You've seen Gordon before if you've watched the show. Speaking of Gordon, I think I want to talk about something that's fairly recent, in 2008, 2009, that Sarah's introduced me to that now we watch every year. And obviously it's also an album, and it is Sting, If on a Winter's Night. And this is an amazing collection of winter songs, and some very, very old songs, some traditional, some originals, but we watch, I guess it's a live performance of this. Some of the songs are in a different order.
It's live from Durham Cathedral, and you can look it up on YouTube. That's where we watch it every year. I like to watch it usually when I'm trying to decorate the Christmas tree. The performance is extraordinary. All of the different musical instruments. It's fascinating, and the level of musicianship. And the cathedral itself dates back to the 11th century.
The acoustics are perfect. You could hear a pin drop. The precision with which everyone does. I don't know how many people are on stage, but there's the precision with everyone doesn't sing too loud, but you can hear everything. You know, it's definitely not a typical rock band setup. He's got Dominic Miller, who's his longtime guitar player. We actually saw earlier this year in concert when we saw Sting. Yeah. And it's now part of, like, we got to watch this. And the songs are I love the stories behind some of the songs. I've never heard them before.
In the special, he does touch upon explanations of some of them, but he does a new version of Gabriel's message. I love Christmas at Sea. Yeah. Which is, who's the poet?
Oh.
We're not prepared. This is off the cuff.
It's a well-known poet. It would be in here somewhere.
But it's mixed with. She sings in Gaelic. It's beautiful. It's haunting.
The Burning Babe is very strange.
Amazing.
It's a strange lyric or a strange story.
It's kind of dark. But there's a lot of horn, brass instruments. So it kind of has like a happy, bouncy kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
The imagery specifically around the lyrics is very dark. And it's a great one.
It's definitely a mutual favorite of ours. Yeah. And speaking of Sting, of course, you know, growing up throughout the 1980s, came out in late 1984, it's become a new standard for our generation.
Relatively new, because we're not young.
Right, but we were kids when it was out.
Yes.
Is, of course, Band-Aid and Do They Know It's Christmas? And I brought along some props, and if people know the words, they can sing along. There's a world outside your window, and it's a world of dread. Sorry.
Was I supposed to sing?
No, and we don't have a Bono figure. Anyway.
No, we don't.
I wanted to do that. I'm sorry. So I'm going to talk about 3 albums really quick that are relatively new that kind of brings this into the realm of stuff that I normally talk about on here. The first one is one of the most unexpected. It came out of nowhere. It came out in 2006. This is Twisted Sister with A Twisted Christmas, and they hadn't done an album since 1987. I don't know if you consider this an album or not. Gordon doesn't. But this album is full of, mostly like traditional, like secular Christmas songs, but made to sound like certain other rock songs. For example, Silver Bells kind of sounds like Problem Child by AC/DC, for instance. But the highlight and the best known song on it, and the one that I just smile when I hear it, is their version of "O Come All Ye Faithful," which, who knew, is basically the same melody as "We're Not Gonna Take It." So basically they play the music of "We're Not Gonna Take It" and sing "O Come All Ye Faithful" over it, and it works. It's like a mashup. You see these mashups on here. This is one that works ridiculously well. They've done a Broadway show, Twisted Sister at Times Square, TS on TS. It kind of took on a life of its own. It's a lot of fun. If you grew up in the 80s listening to this kind of stuff, this is a fun one to bring to a party, as is this one. This is Helix, Heavy Mental Christmas, Brian Vollmer and whatever cast of, this is a different lineup of Helix. This came out in 2008. This has a mix of old and new songs. There's some new ones on it. Now, he does do a cover of, I will say, one of my favorite Christmas songs to hear on the radio. I've got a soft spot for it, always have, is Paul McCartney's Wonderful Christmas Time.
I know you love that one. Now, I enjoy it, but in my family, we associate it with shopping at Christmas time, and my cousin Jill specifically calls it out as making her feel extra frantic, frenetic. Like there's a certain, like, get your shopping done, like when you hear it.
It's interesting how we have different connections to it, because when I hear Wonderful Christmas Time, I picture myself being a kid. It's in the afternoon of Christmas Day. Everybody's opened their presents. Everybody's had a nap, and I'm waking up and I'm playing with whatever toys I got for Christmas, and I've got the radio on. That's where that song takes me.
Oh.
That's my.
Yeah, no, we associate it with shopping.
Totally different.
I associate the aftermath of Christmas with the movie A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
That's what I think of, specifically.
And the last not the last one. The last band Christmas album I'm going to talk about is this one, Cheap Trick. It's called Christmas Christmas. This came out in 2018. I did a review of it. This one's a good collection of old and new songs. And one of the songs they cover on here, and they cover it quite faithfully, is the song Merry Christmas Everybody by Slade, which is a standard in the UK.
I love the Slade version.
But over here, people might not know it. It's like, here it is, Merry Christmas, everybody's having fun. And it's a staple. I think it was #1 every year in the UK for I don't know how many years, and gets re-released every year. So
if you don't know it, you should listen to the Slade version at least.
Yeah, it's a fun song. Over in the UK, we're like, yes, of course. But over here, it might be one of those you might need to hear it and you go, oh yeah, I know that song. I think they also do. Yeah, they also do Father Christmas by the Kinks, which is kind of a dark song with like upbeat music. I think a lot of Ray Davies songs were like that. But basically, it's about these kids beating up a Santa because they're poor and they don't want toys for Christmas. Father Christmas, give me some money. Anyway, there's a good version of that on there. And then there's this one, which I've had for quite a few years. This is Merry Axmas, A Guitar Christmas. This came out on Sony in 1997. Steve Vai was a mastermind on this, and it's famous rock guitarists interpreting traditional Christmas songs. So it's got Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Eric Johnson, Jeff Beck, Brian Setzer, Joe Satriani, Steve Morse, Steve Vai, Joel Perry, Alex Lifeson, Richie Sambora, and someone named Hote. This is a lot of, it's good guitar music, but it's also fun to put on around this time of year. And the Brian Setzer version of Jingle Bells is instrumental, but the version with vocals, now it makes me think of the Madagascar Penguins Christmas, the little short that's one of my absolute favorites of the last few years. So,
are you going to take a pause?
We'll let Sarah take over for some more of her favorite Christmas music.
Well, I was just waiting for you to complete your, if we're talking about modern ones. Then
yeah, I just wanted to do that all in one.
Okay. I don't have the albums, I have it digital, obviously. But I want to call out Kelly Clarkson specifically, because she's put out 2 Christmas albums in the last couple of years. The first being Wrapped in Red, which is more of there's a lot of love songs in there. I think it was from early on in her then new relationship. A lot of fun ones. She does obviously touch upon some Christmas classics that are lovely, but she's got some new ones that are also a lot of fun. But then she came out, I think this came out last year, When Christmas Comes Around, and she has some very retro sounding, I would say, specifically versions of some classic ones. But she did Christmas Isn't Canceled, Just You, which is like a breakup anthem kind of thing, but it's fantastic. So if you enjoy, I mean, Kelly can sing anything, in my opinion. She's incredible, but that is a great one. The other one that she does one with Ariana Grande, if people enjoy her, Santa Can't You Hear Me, it's fun too. But I really specifically like this one, this Under the Mistletoe, which is Kelly with Brett Eldridge, which is, I mean, he's a country singer, which normally I'm not necessarily into, but I really like it. It's a kind of a old-fashioned style. It's great.
It's like Kenny and Dolly.
Kind of is. We'll touch upon
that
too.
That.
But it's that kind of feel. And I would say, so she's really embraced kind of the Christmas album vibe, kind of picking up from where Mariah Carey, I mean, we can't not talk about Mariah Carey.
Right.
She's self-titled, Queen of Christmas. I think she tried to trademark it, but she can't.
Oh.
I mean,
what about a Christmas queen?
But we can't not, I mean, she wrote probably it's like modern classic.
It's a new standard.
It is absolutely a new standard.
He's going to break that.
Yes, he probably will pull it off.
We're having
I'll hit him with it. Get out of there. The other one, I do want to say, like, I enjoy from a cheesy perspective, the Gwen Stefani, Blake Shelton. What's the name of that?
Oh, You Make It Feel Like Christmas.
You Make It Feel Like Christmas.
That's very Kenny and Dolly.
It is completely cheesy. I love it. It gives me the warm, fuzzy feel. Can we go into singles or we?
Yeah.
Katy Perry has one too. Cozy Little Christmas. It's cute. It's cheesy. I do want to call I also really enjoy the Ed Sheeran and Elton John Merry Christmas. There's not much to it, but it's very happy. It's very radio friendly, short and sweet. Let's talk about Celine Dion. Celine Dion, when did that come out? In the late 90s?
97, 98.
So, but specifically The Magic of Christmas Day.
Which was written by Mr. D. Snyder, believe it or not, of Twisted Sister.
Which is amazing to me.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that until you told me that. But I've always had a great affection for Celine. And she's amazing. And it's a great song that D. Snyder wrote. So it's pretty cool. Other modern ones. I do like some of the Michael Bublé. There's some specifically that I really enjoy. I like the ones that are kind of swing, like with the is it the Papini sisters, where they sound
sort of like Bing Crosby.
They're very much stylized like the Andrews sisters.
Yeah,
I like those ones
40s
a lot.
sounding, 30s and 40s.
And obviously the Mariah Carey "All I Want for Christmas Is You." It's not holiday season if you don't hear it. And this one, the Ravenettes, the Christmas song. I think that's the one from the Christmas movie that Marley hates. The one with Tim Allen.
Oh, Christmas with the
Cranks.
Cranks. Yes, I always have to ask what song that is. I can never remember it. I don't know why she. I think it
bothered her.
It stresses her out.
The movie?
I think so.
Well, it's completely silly.
I think it's like I think her thought was, why don't they just leave them alone if they want to go? They want to go on
Sure,
vacation.
but it's not
for
about
Christmas.
being practical. It's
I
just
know.
a silly movie.
Yes.
And I also have always the NSYNC Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. For whatever reason, I love it. It puts like when we talk about like the feel of nostalgia.
Yeah.
When I lived away from home, it used to make me incredibly sad, kind of bittersweet. Because all you want to be is home.
You can't manufacture that feeling either. And if a modern song can capture that, then it's quite an achievement.
I think so too. I think that those are most of the modern ones that I like. There's obviously some versions of Christmas classics like Josh Groban and Andrea Bocelli that I really enjoy. That you wouldn't, obviously, but I do.
Sometimes it has nothing to do with genre. It's like, it's like, yeah, okay, I enjoyed this for Christmas songs. I've just got a couple that I wrote down that are just kind of one-offs. They don't belong to albums. Back in 92, I think it was for a Very Special Christmas Volume 2, Extreme did a beautiful song called Christmas Time Again. It's an original song, and it's got that trademark, Gary Sharon, Bencore harmonies. It's really, really good. It's really nice. I still hear that in like malls once in a while. It finds its way into, like Billy Squier, Christmas is the Time to Say I Love You. That was from '81. He did that, I think that was recorded at MTV. That still gets played every year. That's a fun song. I grew up, and I don't have a copy of it anymore. I grew up with like really, really old, like Gene Autry,
Yes, yeah,
his version of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Silver Bells and a lot of other songs. And there's an old Christmas record that we used to have in the family. It had like a drawing of Santa on a sled with a blue background. I've been looking for that on CD for years. I've never ever seen it. I've seen different CDs with some of those songs on it. He also he sings The Night Before Christmas, the poem, but he sings it with Rosemary Clooney. So I remember that going way, way, way back. And of course, we have to talk about Bing Crosby and David Bowie. Peace on Earth, Little Drummer Boy, and the Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly.
It's classic. We have to watch it every year.
Shot for shot remake of it.
It's
and
Funny or
it
Die.
Is so good.
We like to watch it on YouTube, and typically we'll watch the original, and then we'll watch the Funny or Die skit quickly thereafter.
Knocking over the Christmas tree.
Enjoy it so much. The singing, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so enjoyable. As I look through some of these old ones too,
She's got some old mixed CDs.
I do. I forgot, like, Celine Dion's God Blesses Everyone. That's a good one, too. And You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. I mean, the Boris Karloff, correct? Is that right?
Yeah. I had that on my list. This is all of
Christmas.
it's got the first track is 21 minutes long, and it's basically the narration of it, which is Boris Karloff. But yeah, You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch was sung by one of the strangest names. This is why I always remember it. Thurl Ravencroft is the singer of that song, but Boris Karloff narrated it, and he was the voice of the Grinch. So this has got Trim Up the Tree, Welcome Christmas, Dahu Dore, whatever and then the reprise of it. So yeah, there's not a lot to this, but if you grew up with watching it, although I have to say that the recordings are slightly different than the special that was on TV. They're similar, but they're slightly different.
Okay.
This CD came out in about 95.
I want to talk about too, though, the George Michael Last Christmas.
Well, that dates back to the same as Do They Know It's Christmas. Those were like mid 80s.
I know.
It's a classic.
It is a classic.
There's been a lot of people have remade it. No one's bettered it.
No one can do it. I mean, Darren Hayes from Savage Garden did do a version that I think was pretty faithful, but the old standby is definitely the George Michael. But I mean, just an incredible talent. Really, the fact that he wrote the songs that he did at such a young age too. The other one that I grew up with too that you didn't so much was the Mannheim Steamroller Christmas album.
When she says Mannheim Steamroller Christmas, we think of totally different things.
We do, because you like the more synthesized. They're all synthesized.
There's
let's
a
be honest.
synthesizer version. It's Deck the Halls, and I think it's from like 1984. And that's the one that I remember hearing on the radio. It was like,
but you like those ones, and I like the more.
That's the only one I really know.
Oh. But anytime we talk about them, he likes that one in particular. I find it kind of, we're back to the word frenetic.
And to me, the stuff that she listens to, I'd never heard before. It's totally different sounding, even though it is instrumental, synthesizer based. It's just different.
We have just different preferences that way, probably in a lot of things. But I like the more. There's some that are more peaceful, and then there are some where the instrumentation is more. Some of it's kind of medieval sounding, and then you get into some of the more brass instrumentation. I like those ones too.
So the Deck the Halls has like the drum machine doom 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 doom, and then like that's what I think of with Mannheim Steamroller.
Oh, so funny.
Speaking of having different connections though to the same artist, in our house. And it didn't get played that much, but my father had a cassette by Roger Whittaker that was a Christmas album. It was called, I think it was called Tidings of Comfort and Joy. And so when we started dating, she talked about Roger Whittaker Christmas. I'm like, okay, yeah, well, I'm familiar with that. She's got a totally different one that's from about 8 years earlier.
So the one that I grew up with, and my parents had the actual vinyl. This is Roger Whittaker, the Christmas album. And
from 76, I think. think, originally.
And it's funny because I remember perhaps not enjoying it so much when I was young, but I have such love for it now as an adult, and I think that I really started to embrace it more like in my early 20s when I moved away from home. And then very quickly I was so excited when I found it on CD, and I got one for myself and one for my mom, and it just, again, it touches the warm fuzzies. And there are a lot of them are original compositions.
And it's got some, it's got fun songs like Darcy the Dragon, but it's also got The Governor's Dream, which is a totally unique.
Yes, and I love it, but you said you wouldn't have been so fond of it.
I don't think I would have liked it if I was a kid. I like it now. Is it Country Christmas where what's the one where he brings in parts of the other Christmas songs? Is that the first song? You know the one I mean.
I do.
But it's a really good. It's very classic sounding.
Country Christmas. Governor's Dream, though, I think he goes in and out of some of the classics.
Yeah, but there's another one.
It might be Country Christmas.
But anyway.
Anyway, it's if you're open to new things, then that's kind of
that's the closest thing that I've heard to an old album that I didn't grow up with that I got an affinity for, that I could say, yeah, this probably would have been a staple in our home had my parents heard it.
The other one that I grew up with, my mom had John Denver Christmas, so Silver Bells.
With the Muppets? Or just...
No,
because he did one with the Muppets.
He did an original one, but the one that I was going to call out with the Muppets was the 12 Days of Christmas, which is fun with the Muppets. Yeah. And then, I don't know, I enjoy, like, the South Park Christmas. I know you don't so much, it's very crass. But as in all things, they have a sense of musicality.
Yeah.
They're very sing-song. It's completely silly, frivolous, but it's enjoyable. Christmas Time in Hell, which is sung by Satan. Anyway, if you enjoy those kind of things, then I would check that out. It's fun. And Saturday Night Live, Dick in a Box.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tim, had to be mentioned.
It's
entertaining. It's very catchy, and it won an Emmy. Adam Sandler,
the Hanukkah song. Yeah.
I think you have to reference that.
The original one's the best. Like, he
Agreed.
did 2 or 3 ones, but the original one's the best.
Absolutely. And what else did I want to talk about? Oh, the Pogues, Fairy Tale of New York.
Oh, yes. Which is so sad.
Terribly. But it's sung in kind of a, I don't know, do you want to call it tongue-in-cheek, or how would you best...
Boy, I don't know.
I don't know either, but it's... I just enjoy it still.
But it's a perennial.
Absolutely. I do want to talk about the Bing Crosby, Mele Kalikimaka. I associate it
National
with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Probably most of our generation do.
I love it so much. I love that movie. It's probably, when I think about which ones are my favorites, it's right up there for me. That and Elf.
And the older that the older I get, the more I appreciate Clark Griswold and all of the, it's exaggerated, but it's not much. It can be a crazy, crazy time of year. And difficult for many people for various reasons. So, yeah. I don't want to get into that, but that is what it is. A Christmas album that is, it's silly. It's completely silly, but it means a lot to my sister and I because of where we heard it, and I finally found it on CD. It's Christmas Disco, the Mistletoe Disco Band, just nameless session musicians, I'm sure. But the story behind this is it starts off sad. So our grandfather died in 1982, and my grandmother wasn't going to put up a Christmas tree. She wasn't going to bother with Christmas that year, and my sister and I said, ridiculous. We're going to go get you a Christmas tree, and so Mom took us all out to the mall, and she bought one of those early, old, stiff looking fake Christmas trees, but that became her tree. And she didn't have any Christmas albums. I don't know if people just brought them over. They didn't have any Christmas albums. Every household when I was growing up had a collection of Christmas albums. Some were the same, some were different. She didn't have any. And this is 1982, so I remember out front, as soon as you walked into the Met, which doesn't even exist anymore, there was a big dump bin of records. And disco was completely dead by this point. So I think that my sister and I saw this disco Christmas record for 50 cents or something like that, and bought it. And it's exactly what you'd think. It's all these Christmas songs with a disco beat. I think it's like practically one continuous track, and they just go back and forth. And it's pure cheese, but it's pure nostalgia for me. And a funny story in the late 90s, we were shopping. It was around Christmas time. We both happened to be in the same store at the same time. It was the It store when they had that. And one of the songs from this came on the speakers. And we ran up, like we looked at each other like, that's it, that's it. And we ran up to the counter and said, where is this music coming from? And it was a satellite feed, and they had no idea. But anyway, so eventually I did find this disco Christmas album.
That's pretty funny. My family, so we did not have the disco Christmas hits.
Well, I'm a little surprised because
We didn't. My family loved their
their
disco,
disco,
but
but-
we did not have that one. That was not something that we had. But my family loves the Bear McNeil's Christmas album. And
speaking of disco,
yeah, that's a little bit
it's,
of
it's a little Celtic Christmas.
totally
Yeah.
Celtic Christmas. But we've seen them, some members of my family perennially, they go to see it. I've seen it several times myself. They put on a beautiful Christmas show. Their harmonization.
For those of you that don't know, the Bear
Yeah, I was
McNeils
just gonna say, from Cape
are
Breton.
they're from the easternmost part of Canada, even more eastern than where we are. They're a family group, and they're it's Celtic. There was like a Celtic music revival in the early '90s, and they were one of the main. Them and Ashley McIsaac and Natalie
The Rankin
McMaster
family.
and the Rankin family, yeah.
But specifically,
But they've become very well known for their Christmas shows.
Yes, indeed. And there's a couple that I really like, and one of them is I think it's the Irish Rovers that did it, but the Christmas in Killarney. I love that
yes,
one in
yeah.
particular. That's a great one.
When I was a kid, I thought they were saying Kilmarnock because there's a place up here called Kilmarnock, and I thought that's what they were saying, but it's not. Very similar though.
No. So we really enjoy a lot of theirs specifically. And then the other one that I also enjoy, the Chieftains had like a Christmas album, and I think that my Aunt Cheryl had that one specifically, but I really enjoy it. And the one that I keep putting on my Christmas playlist is St. Stephen's Day Murders, which is kind of dark, but it's also very, very
Yeah.
British in that way. Go ahead.
Another album that I grew up with from an early age is this. It's called Disney's Christmas Favorites. And it's not the Disney characters singing. That was sort of like, and I remember being disappointed at first, but I grew to really love the album, and I'm glad that it was. So it was a guy by the name of Larry, I don't know how you say his last name, it's either Gross or Groce. It's spelled like Jim Croce, but with a G, so it's Groce. He had a one-hit wonder in the 70s called Junk Food Junkie, which is kind of a novelty song, but he sings all the songs, and it just became a staple in our home. And believe it or not, as someone that ended up being such a music collector, it's the first time I ever saw a record with a second pressing, because I remember the first one had a Disneyland label on it. It was all in red with black lettering. It got all very, very scratched because we played it all the time. And of course, kids, we're not careful putting the needle down. We're just impatient. So Mom or Dad ended up buying another copy of it a couple of years later. And by then it had a colored label. It was the same record, but it had a colored. So that's the first time I realized that it's not always going to be the same when you buy something. But it was also one that I took years to find on CD. And even after I found it on CD, it wasn't quite right. But I ended up buying it because it had the right cover on it. So I ended up buying this. It's a Japanese import. It's only got 7 tracks on it. And one of the tracks wasn't even on the original record. It's Chip and Dale singing the Chipmunk song, which is weird. It's the Alvin and Christmas time. Anyway, this is what the CD itself looked like. But back in the old internet days, I was able to find the rest of the tracks. And some of these songs, such as Do You Hear What I Hear, Frosty the Snowman, to me, the definitive versions of those songs are the ones that are on here. So this is always going to be pretty up there on my list. This one is one that just takes me completely back to childhood. Not just because it's got the Disney characters on it, but just the sound of the album.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with that one. Now, I like the classic, like whether it be Bing Crosby, Burl Ives, Nat King Cole, like the really original versions of some of the holiday classics, like the Brenda Lee Rocking Around the Christmas Tree, like very traditional Christmas. I should say.
And speaking of Burl Ives, this is of course the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer,
Which
is a perennial, but this has
it is.
We're a Couple of Misfits, Silver and Gold, Holly Jolly Christmas. See, Holly Jolly Christmas, that's the version of Holly Jolly Christmas.
Yes. And I think we should talk about what that particular Christmas special means, like, to those of us of our generation. Like, because it was before satellite TV, before cable, especially in the rural areas.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about it with my parents. Like, I remember watching it, like, on a snowy TV.
Meaning poor reception.
Yes,
Where
absolutely.
you had to jiggle the rabbit ears.
We hope for the best.
Yeah. Put some tinfoil on the antenna.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, but and finally, getting it on like DVD is like, wow, the clarity is amazing.
Remastered, if you will.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about Kenny and Dolly?
I think that we should, because it's
should
one
too.
that we had in common.
One of
Very few that we had in common. And there's another story there about trying to find all of the songs on it. But so
right,
this
because
came
you
out,
said there's different.
Yeah, so that originally came out. That's a relatively new Christmas album, but it has be kind of like
It's
a
from
modern.
the early 80s.
It's from 1984.
My mom liked to bake to it.
Yeah,
That's what I remember.
And Mom did too. So it was always the cassette had Kenny and Dolly on the cover with Santa hats on. The cassette had like gold on the side of it, and
I don't remember.
we just play it over and over and over again. I think that Mom went through 2 cassettes of it. I think it started to wear. That's how much it got played during it. Was because she loved Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton anyway. She'd seen them in concert together and separately, and
But that's why it's so strange to me that my mom loved it so much, because we're not a country music.
but it
household.
transcended.
I know, but
There's just something about, and I mean, it was pretty pop country. It was produced by
I
David
don't
Foster.
disagree.
Like all of the edges
Yeah,
were
so-
smoothed off.
So the two that I love in particular are I Believe in Santa Claus and With Bells On. Those are the two.
They're
that-
very similar songs. They're very
They
similar
are.
in tempo. They're hot. They're high energy.
They're very happy.
You could clog to them.
I was just gonna say Tim likes
it
to
has
do
happened.
the.
Those were
clogging
clogging
interpretation.
perennials this time of year. Yep. Yeah.
And
So this Christmas album is one of the most successful Christmas albums of all time. It sold like 2 million copies, but it wasn't until the late 90s that a CD version of it appeared. And when it came out, it only had 9 songs on it, and the original album had 11, or it had 10 songs on it. But anyway, it left off 2 of the songs from the original album, and it added Hard Candy Christmas, which is one of Dolly's, which was not on the original Once Upon a Christmas album. It was an earlier song of hers that they stuck on there. So last year for Mom and Dad, mostly Mom, I found the original RCA 1984 CD with all of the songs on it, and she was a little confused. And I'm like, Mom, look at them both together. They're different. They're the same, but they're different. Anyway, now you've got all the songs that you would want. So. Yeah, Sarah mentioned it before, but yeah, if I had to pick a favorite, and I've already listened to it a few times, it's the Vince Guaraldi Trio, Charlie Brown Christmas. This is pretty special to me, the TV special and the music from it. This is the only jazz album I'll probably ever own, too. Kind of introduced the idea of what jazz was about, because they'll play the melody, but they'll play it really different. And I also happen to have this, which my buddy Mark gave to me, the vinyl version with a cool lenticular cover. It's slightly different, I think. I think it's a different cover. The tree looks different to me. But yeah, this is music that takes me like earliest memories of Christmas, because Rudolph and the Charlie Brown Christmas and the Grinch, they were less than 10 years old when I was born, but they've been around my whole life. I mean, we could talk all day about the TV specials, like 'Twas the Night Before Christmas and I Love the Muppet Family Christmas and different ones like that. But as far as just the music, yeah, probably if I had to pick one favorite Christmas album, it would probably be this one. So I
I would be hard pressed probably to narrow it down to one. You know what I'm like. I have have a love of singles.
And I'm sure we're forgetting. There's
we
probably
totally are.
some
There's
obvious
the
ones.
Waitress's Christmas wrapping.
Oh yeah,
I heard
yeah.
a more
Yeah.
recent rendition. I don't know who it was. I heard it on the radio the other night.
And that's one of those songs that I'd heard for years, and I didn't know who it was or what it was called. But that's the bah humbug. Da, da, da. They sang that song. I know what boys like. That was that group. The
I don't know
Waitresses.
that I knew that.
Yeah.
John Lennon, Happy Christmas,
Yeah.
Winter's Over. There's that one as well. I also, before I forget, the Judy Garland, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. I love that.
Is that from?
It's from what's the name of that? Meet Me in St. Louis.
Right.
Which I love, and the film that is.
And White Christmas. That's a
White
classic.
Christmas, yeah. Marley, we watch that
Yeah.
every year typically. But to Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, I prefer
That's,
her version.
You think her version is the
Absolutely,
definitive one.
and it's very melancholy. It can make me cry, depending on my mood. It's just her voice is extraordinary, and so yeah, the Rosemary Clooney, Bing Crosby versions of different holiday classics are beautiful as well. There was another Christmas, I had it and now I've lost it, that I was thinking of. In the vein of Judy Garland. I don't know now.
We didn't plan much here before.
No, we didn't, and I
So-
should have, because that's how easily I lose my train of thought. But if you like old movies, those ones are definitely fantastic to check out.
Well, back to the Muppet Family Christmas. One of my favorite parts of that is the Christmas medley that they do at the end of it, which is it's a lot of fun, but it's very warm and fuzzy at the same time. But then again, I mean, I have a deep, the Muppets go way back with me. The Muppets, Sesame Street, all the Jim Henson stuff. But
Oh, I know what I was going to say. My favorite things, Julie Andrews, for me, and I think it's because, for whatever reason, they tend to play The Sound of Music at Christmas time. And it's a really long film, and I don't know if it's become like a Christmas
it's like
classic.
Die Hard.
It is like Die
Only
Hard,
not
which
at all.
we've watched already this year. Yeah, only not at all. Yeah. I want to, this is one, and I like some of the choral.
Right.
It makes me think of, going to Christmas Eve services as a child. But Once in Royal David City, I have great affection for that one. Tim
That's
didn't
one.
know
That's
that
one that I didn't know. Didn't Eric
No.
Clapton do that in the last few years?
That I don't know.
Well, I think that's where we had the discussion about
Are
it.
you sure?
No. But
Sleigh Ride by the Ronettes, I enjoy that too.
that's
fun.
probably the definitive
And
version of that.
This Christmas, Donny Hathaway, that's a good one too.
Yeah, that's one that I didn't know who sang it originally. It's been done many times, but he did it probably the best. And it just Nat King Cole, the Christmas song. That's probably the definitive version of that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting how certain versions of songs become I don't know. Sometimes they just get it right.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a look at some of our favorite Christmas music. Hope everyone out there is having a great holiday. What's some of yours? What did you grow up with? Is there something newer along the way that has become something that you have to listen to?
We're all over the place.
Yeah, this is
terms
probably the most varied episode that you'll ever see. So, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, Happy
and,
Holidays, Happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you so much for watching Tim's Final Confessions.